For the last video in this section, I want to just talk about some cardiovascular diseases, and I have CVD, cardiovascular disease, is the leading cause of early death in Western countries. Um, this is kind of a good thing and a bad thing because you actually have to live long enough for most people to get cardiovascular disease. So cardiovascular disease is kind of a side effect of living long. So countries where people don't live very long, or historically when people died in their 30s and 40s, as 50 was old age and people died then, or people didn't necessarily die of cardiovascular disease because they didn't live long enough. So we have aging as one of the risk factors, but we're also all aware of lifestyle things that can affect cardiovascular diseases. What we eat, how much we exercise, can have a big impact on cardiovascular disease. I remember hearing something like, what you eat influences your weight the most, and how much you exercise influences your health the most. I think a lot of people think they can exercise out of being fat, but it really is hard to exercise enough to lose a substantial amount of weight. That exercise is really more important for your heart and your brain health. So lifestyle, aging have big impact on cardiovascular disease. So we already talked about hypertension a little bit. We said hypertension is high blood pressure, and I showed you this table already. So high blood pressure can contribute to a lot of cardiovascular disease. There's also something called atherosclerosis, which I'm going to get to. And both of these can lead to stroke, heart attack, and aneurysm. So I'm going to define all these terms coming up. When we talk about hypertension, I neglected to mention that this is often called the silent killer, because a lot of times people don't know that they have high blood pressure, which is why they get to have, there's initiatives to put blood pressure cuffs, sphygmomanometers in gyms and grocery stores. I know the Wegmans in Corning has a blood pressure cuff by the pharmacy you can go use. So you want to have your blood pressure checked. Oh, they do it at the dentist now too. But anyway, because it's a silent killer, you don't always know you have it. So let's look at these other terms and see how they affect cardiovascular disease. The atherosclerosis is a buildup of atherosclerotic plaque in the walls of blood vessels. So what that means is this stuff that we call plaque is it's made from fats. And we used to think it was just made from cholesterol because it's got a lot of cholesterol in it. But it turns out that our bodies make cholesterol from the fat that we eat. So certain kinds of fats in our diets, particularly the saturated fats, like the fats that come from animals, are more likely to make more cholesterol and cause plaque to build up in our blood vessels. And so you can imagine that if you make your blood vessels smaller, that the blood pressure is going to go up. Also, what can happen is by having this, it can cause blood clots to form. And blood clots can contribute to stroke. So we'll talk about that. So atherosclerosis is the buildup of this plaque in your blood vessels. Now, even if you eat a perfectly healthy diet, some of this happens with aging. Some people are more prone to it based on their genetics. So it's not 100% avoidable. Here I just want to show you what a coronary bypass was and a heart attack. Another word for a heart attack is myocardial infarction. So here we've got that atherosclerosis building up in a blood vessel, and it's preventing blood from flowing very well. Now anybody remember, oh, here I'm talking like you're a live class, but do you remember the name of this blood vessel? These blood vessels on the surface of the heart are called the coronary arteries. So we're going to call it coronary bypass surgery. Everybody's heard of somebody who's gotten a bypass, or they've gotten triple bypass, which they're showing on this heart. So what they do is they take blood vessels from somewhere else in your body, like an artery, or usually from your forearm or from your groin area. they'll harvest some arteries or veins, and they'll build a little bridge. So if the blood's flowing this way, but there's a blockage right there, you could build a little bridge from here, connect it to here, and you can get the blood to bypass that blockage. And so what they're saying, if there's a blockage right here, the blood's not getting down here, so I can take the blood from the aorta here and put an extra vein and bypass that blockage to get blood down here. So the coronary arteries, if they get blocked, they cause a heart attack, also called a myocardial infarction, and people can get coronary bypass surgery to get around those blockages. Some people get strokes. A stroke occurs when an artery in the brain is either blocked, just like we showed you here, there's a blockage, so you're not getting oxygen to part of your brain, or the artery bursts and therefore you're not getting oxygen to that part of the brain. And so that the brain's going to die due to lack of oxygen. And so the symptoms are going to be determined by where in the brain that occurs. If it's around where you have your speech section, you're not going to be able to speak. If it happens where, the breathing or heart rate section, you're probably going to die instantly because you're not going to be able to breathe or beat your heart. When we talk about nervous system, I'll remind you that the right side of the heart controls the left side of your body. So if you have a stroke on the right side of your brain, you'll observe more loss of function on the left side of the body. An aneurysm is a ballooning of a blood vessel, and most often it happens in the abdominal aorta or the blood vessels in the brain. So here they're showing you, here's a normal blood vessel, but it's got a little weakening in it, and so it balloons out. And you can imagine if you have a weakening in a blood vessel, high blood pressure would make it more likely to burst. Remember, your aorta goes down your whole torso. So people can get an abdominal or an abdominal aorta, an abdominal aneurysm in their aorta, and it can burst and they can die within minutes. And remember, your aorta's got your highest blood pressure, so you're going to lose a lot of blood there very quickly. Atherosclerosis, blocking of blood vessels, and hypertension, high blood pressure, can weaken a vessel and call it ballooning. So a lot of these cardiovascular conditions are related to each other. If a major artery ruptures, death can result, and it can result very quickly. I've known people in my life. I know one man who his aorta, he had an abdominal aorta rupture. There was somebody around that called an ambulance immediately, and he miraculously survived. I know of another woman who was bowling, sat down and said, "Boy, do I have a headache." Put her head down on the table and died. And it was because a blood vessel in her brain just burst and it bled out. So these are not uncommon. And good cardiovascular health decreases the chance of getting an aneurysm. And sometimes it's just bad luck. That's all I had. I ended the lecture on bad luck. So hopefully you have some good luck studying this. Let me know if you need any help. Take care.